in synopsis, and it can probably best be explained by one of the ESPN writers themselves, in that this documentary highlights the reason why many Americans have just given up on Lance.
It might be one lie because you answer it once, or in my case it might be 10,000 lies because you answer it 10,000 times. And then you take it a step further and you reinforce it, and hey, fuck you, don't ever fucking ask me that question again, right? And then you go sue somebody, that's another, and then it just, so that's why it was 100 times worse.
The show details the former 7-time Tour de France champion, and is now regarded as a disgraced doping cheat, who was the poster boy of the sport's darkest period. Although, while many of us plead for him to be forgotten, the story still has an emphasis, it still has a box office appeal, and in reality should still be taught as an example of how not to do things. The documentary was met with mixed reactions, with some new revelations that were unveiled, such as Armstrong claiming he first doped at 21 years old. It seems as if Armstrong's promise of telling the truth could be wishful thinking, and it went too easy on him. We got to remember that many of the people around him consider him to be a narcissist or have narcissistic tendencies. Yet again, as I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist and have not seen the guy in person, I do not know, but I should take that into account. The documentary also has some pretty incredible access to Lance and the people closest to him during this period, whilst also pulling off the great knowledge of journalists and other professional riders and other people who may have aided the documentary information, although some of it was opinion, but very wee bit of it. Due to Zenovich's involvement, Lance is a high quality and engaging documentary. There is a lot to unpack from it, a lot of introspection, and Lance, the story written in it, is actually fairly well crafted retelling of Armstrong's life. However, despite its long length, it being 2 1.5 hour documentaries, but yet again, we focus sometimes too much on trying to get that information in a short space of time. We actually miss the most of the information, so sometimes shorter documentaries are shitter than the long documentaries. They're worse off because of their length being too short. And you find that a lot with YouTube videos in general. People want that information in 2 minutes, and you try and explain that in 2 minutes is almost ridiculously impossible. Some may see that despite its long length, there are certain stones that have not been overturned. That may be room for another documentary. However, the documentary does lead us to having a broader conversation about doping, how we treat people, and the mindset of dopers in general. Many viewers, on the other hand, may see this as basically something to feature Lance Armstrong's effort to resurrect his reputation, and to a certain degree they may be correct. There were many parts of the documentary that gave us a glimpse into his life, but in reality was probably quite irrelevant. Him talking about entering an half Ironman. Does that add to us knowing about how he doped, about how he likes to spend time exercising? There was a good 10 minutes of good 20 minutes of the actual film talking about swimming. Does that tell me much about it tells me much about Armstrong's life now, but not then in the darkest period, which is what we desperately want to know. And some of these irrelevancies, although detailing a certain amount of how much money the guy's got, is kind of irrelevant, and we could have focused on more things or gained more knowledge of certain areas. Yet again, we might have to leave this for another documentary. All in all, I give Lance 30 for 30 a score of 96.9.